Happy Father's Day, everybody, and Tony here. And for this very special day, I'm going to be doubling my efforts and review two movies, both of them being very dramatic. And the first one on my list is The Fault in Our Stars, which I saw at the Sinister Movie Theaters at Potsdamer Platz. The film was directed by Josh Boone. It was produced by Wick Godfrey and Marty Bowen. The screenplay was by Scott Neustadter and Michael H. Weber, and it was based on the novel of the same name by John Green, and it stars Shailene Woodley, Ansel Elgort, Nat Wolff, Laura Dern, Sam Trammell, Willem Dafoe, Lotte Verbeek, and Paul Barbilia. Now, I was very skeptical when approaching this movie, and I definitely had very low expectations because knowing a lot of the teen drama movies and teen movies that I've watched, well, with the exception of the likes of Breakfast Club and to some extent 16 Candles, though I haven't really seen a great deal of that, but definitely Breakfast Club is one of the best teen movies I've ever saw. I tend to be very iffy with teen movies of this decade, but I have to say, after watching this film in particular, I was absolutely surprised at how it caught me emotionally. It was just that much of a roller coaster ride, well, an emotional roller coaster ride, and I definitely had to say it really surprised me in more ways than one. What could have been a potential failure definitely shown in its storytelling, characters, and just how well it managed to pace itself. Now, the story of this movie definitely kept me very engaged because the main theme of this movie basically talks about death and illness. Because we as human beings are only here on this earth for however long we'll end up staying, and there will always be these certain diseases or disorders that we'll end up having, whether they be cancer or some other type of incurable disease that we might not end up fighting, no matter how hard we try. But it's always important to know that we have to keep fighting, not just for us to, look good or to look any better, but it helps us to survive throughout these hard times. And definitely, this story was not like your typical teen movie cliche or whatsoever, but this was definitely a story that has hit me right here in the heart and has made me feel so invested because the fact that the main characters are teenagers between the ages of 16 and 18 and talking about death is actually quite heartbreaking. Sure, I'm 22, but to hear teenagers talk like that, it kind of resonates with me because yeah, I've seen certain pieces of teen medium that kind of shy away from that, mostly coming from Disney Channel and at times Nickelodeon. And it seems as though that it seems rather appalling that some of these shows kind of shy away from these. I mean, the only shows that I've known that basically talk about death are mainly Hey Arnold and As Told by Ginger, and even that of Caitlin's Way. And those are very great shows, by the way. And with this movie in particular, sure, it definitely kept my interest of just how it managed to pace itself very well. There were no slow moments whatsoever. There were no boring moments. There were definitely a lot of moments that has really made my heart really shrivel up into pieces, and it was just so engaging, so riveting, and real. It was just so real because every time I place my focus in this movie, it made me realize just how real these characters are. These are not like tropes that you'd usually see in a lot of teen shows whatsoever, or teen movies, but these are real teenagers, real human teenagers that you can really talk to, get to know them, and just understand what's going on in their own little worlds and what's going on in their lives with their parents or even with themselves. And you definitely feel invested. So, overall, while the story may not be anything that's totally groundbreaking, it definitely deserves merit of just how real and just how authentic it is when it comes to portraying teenagers and their perception of death and life. It is just that riveting. The cinematography is very solid all around. And fun fact, this was shot in Pittsburgh and also in Amsterdam. It was just that great. I really loved the locations that they've used for each, well, shot whatsoever. It was just that great. Whether I saw the autumn leaves in the Pittsburgh setting or even that of the Amsterdam setting with all of the trams and the bridges, because let's face it, I was there during my Easter break, and I definitely enjoyed it. And it was just that great. The locations used for this movie in particular were just absolutely great all around. It was just that riveting. It was just so full of color and so full of detail that it was just totally flawlessly shot. The characters are extremely engaging, and the most engaging characters for me definitely have to be Hazel and Augustus. Hazel is this cynical yet very slightly optimistic young girl who was diagnosed with lung cancer ever since she was a kid, and she was also diagnosed with thyroid cancer. And her perception of life and death seems rather bleak because, well, as her parents say, she reads the same books by this author over and over again, and she keeps watching these same self help reality TV shows, like almost ritually. And she definitely has a bleak view of life and of people. But all I have to say is that she is definitely a real teenage girl that I can definitely, well, reach out to and definitely have my heart for her. She's not like those vapid, stupid, and very incompetent female leads that I'd usually see in certain media. I'm looking at you, Hannah Montana, and to some extent Zoe 101. Oh yeah, Zoe 101 definitely sucks as well. But with that ranting aside, she's definitely not like those characters. She's definitely very real. She feels pain, she feels a lot of suffering, and she has to cope with them no matter how great or how bad her life seems to be. In some ways, she reminds me of Caitlin from Caitlin's Way because Caitlin has to go through the same pains, and even though Caitlin is a little bit more on the rough side, Hazel is not as rough because, well, when it comes to her family background, she's raised really, really well. Her parents support her. Her parents really care for her. They're there for her. And she definitely also cares for them as well. She even tells her mother that if she dies, then her mother will end up mourning for her to the point where she turns herself off. And it was just that heartbreaking. It was really that heartbreaking to follow Hazel's journey. But this was definitely real without shoving anything on my throat. She was definitely a great female character, or definitely a great young female character that I'm sure a lot of younger girls will look up to and will probably have her as their role model. Another great character who also gets a great amount of development definitely has to be Augustus, aka Gus. In the beginning of the film, he starts out very goofy, very jovial, and very fun loving. And he definitely has that air of optimism. And not to mention, I felt very happy for both Hazel, Gus, and even their parents that they get to go to Amsterdam to meet her favorite author that she's been wanting to meet for a very, very long time. And another note that I like to make about Hazel, I also felt very sad for her when initially she couldn't go to Amsterdam because of what the doctor said, but I felt genuine joy when Hazel found out that she was going to Amsterdam with her mother and Gus. It was just so great. And sure, it kind of feels unexplained of what truly happened, but I felt happy for her nonetheless, and also for Gus. Now, going to Gus, he's definitely another person who has a lot of development throughout the course of the film. He's also a person who is diagnosed with some type of cancer that, well, affects his body overall. And within a few days or within a few months, he'll end up withering. And I definitely have to say, he definitely is one of the best, another great character in this film. Simply because, yes, we weren't supposed to take him seriously from the beginning, but our hearts really started to go out to him. My heart, especially, because he was just that genuine. He was, simply put, he was not a doormat. He was not just your everyday guy next door. He's a very optimistic and very likable person. And I really saw the chemistry that both Augustus and Hazel had. I really knew that they were very much a potential couple. And their relationship with each other was very real. It didn't feel so romanticized, and it didn't feel like your stereotypical fairy tale romance. It was real. They started off as friends, and somewhere along the line, they got really close to each other and started a relationship. And let's just say that the ending, or the climax, which I dare not spoil, will leave you in tears, especially of what happens to Augustus. It was just that sad. I was almost in tears. And then we have Isaac. Sure, he's not in the movie throughout the whole course of the time. He only appears in the first act and somewhere in the third act, but he's a very fun character as well. He may not have a lot of screen time, but he's definitely another likable character, mostly because he's a great friend to both Augustus and Hazel. He's very supportive and very much a great guy. He's not a douchebag. He definitely is loyal and is definitely a fun loving character as well. And I definitely knew that his relationship was with Monica was going to suck from the very beginning. I knew because, well, it seemed as though that there was kind of little to no connection between both Isaac and Monica. I couldn't really see any chemistry whatsoever, and let's just say that this film in particular predicted it really right when he ended up, well, being split with Monica. He goes through this huge funk, and now he simply wants to take her down after he had his surgery by simply egging her car, which I definitely thought was hilarious. But still, Isaac was a really likable character all throughout. And with Hazel's parents, sure, they may not have the most depth, but it's very easy to say that at least they're great parents nonetheless. There may not, like I said, there's not a lot of depth that I can write anything about, but with them as parents to Hazel, I felt that they were both very supportive and very, very concerned about how their daughter is faring. They manage to get out of their comfort zones and really care for their daughter. They place her as their priority, especially what happens in the climax. It was just rather, rather great. It really, well, heightened their status as the best parents I saw in films so far. So they're definitely worth rooting for to the very end, especially that of, well, Hazel's mom, who I definitely really admired as a viewer. She was definitely a great mother to Hazel, and she was very understanding of what her daughter was going through. And, well, that's all I can say about both Hazel's parents. They are both great. And then we have the council supervisor whatsoever. I thought he was very funny in his first few scenes. I forgot his name. Perhaps if I scroll down in Wikipedia, perhaps I could find his name. The one played by Mike Barbelli. Sorry, I meant Mike, not Paul. Patrick. Yeah, Patrick. He was definitely a great and very funny character as well. Especially when he sings, he was just that hilarious. Even though he doesn't really have a great amount of screen time, it was just that fun watching him. Now, what did I think about the acting overall? I thought it was just solid. Shailene Woodley managed to really portray Hazel Grace's character very well. Yeah, she could have been casted by another younger actress of 16, probably like Elle Fanning or even Dakota Fanning, but regardless, if I were just to judge the actress by looks, I'd be very shallow. I thought that Shailene Woodley managed to pull that part off with a T. She was able to make Hazel Grace a very, very sympathetic and very likable character. This is definitely a great performance that I've seen her in, and I hope to see more of her in the near future. And as I understand, she did have an extensive movie career as well, and I haven't really watched a great deal of movies starring her, but with her in this film, I definitely enjoyed her performance because she was able to pull off all of the pain that Hazel felt, and she was just that great in her character. She was just so flawless. It was just a flawless portrayal of a girl who suffers from cancer and who is questioning the whole balance of life and death without being overtly pretentious. And then we have Ansel Elgort as Augustus Waters. He was able to bring a sort of jovial feel to Augustus. He was able to make Augustus very spunky, very energetic, and just likable. And another note that I like to make about Augustus is that, of course, he did win all of those basketball trophies, but we never also get a deep understanding of what type of relationship he had with his parents. Oh, sure, he's implying that he has a bit of a rough relationship with his father, but it's never really fleshed out. Anyways, ranting aside, I thought that Ansel Elgort's portrayal of Augustus was really flawless all around, bringing out all of that energy, that likability, that charm, and most importantly, that type of relatability that a lot of teenage boys can really feel. And even if they're no longer teenagers like me, I definitely felt like I was rooting for him from the very beginning. That I was rooting for him from the very beginning. It was just that fantastic. It was just a very fantastic performance all around. With Nat Wolff's portrayal of Isaac, I was definitely quite surprised because Nat Wolff, well, I basically first knew him on the Naked Brothers band, and I never really cared for that Nickelodeon mockumentary at all. I never really cared for that because it was just, well, it was simply put not my style at all. I didn't really care for it at all. I did not care for the songs, but with Nat Wolff's portrayal of Isaac, I definitely felt that this is actually his best material so far that he's worked with. Of course, his character was minute, but this is by far the best material that he's working with, and I hope that he gets a lot more in the near future. Make it happen. So, as of now, this is his best material. He was able to bring out that likability, charm, and that slight rebellious nature that resonates with Isaac. And especially his despair about having this huge funk about being broken up with Monica, it was just that flawless. Sure, it could be a little bit better, but well, we'll give him some more time and then he can really shine. And then we have Laura Dern and Sam Trammell as the parents. I definitely felt they both played their roles very well. Their chemistry with each other was believable, and they were both able to bring out that type of concern that these parents have for their only daughter. It was just that flawless, and it was definitely a very memorable performance by both of these actors, especially with that of Laura Dern, who a lot of people will know her in her role in Jurassic Park, and probably a lot of other small roles that she did in movies that I've never really caught or have been obscure through the test of time. Then we have Willem Dafoe as Peter. Yeah, another note about Peter. Yeah, he basically starts off as this grouchy, jaded author who apparently is loved by both Hazel and who was that again? Augustus through his many books, through one book in particular, which I kind of forgot the name of. But it was just really well written, as according to both Hazel and Augustus. So basically, with Peter's character, he starts off as very drunk, jaded, and kind of a jerk. But he manages to get slightly more likable later on. And he was that okay of a character. Sure, he was a bit of a jerk in his first appearance, but, well, he slightly got a little bit better. Willem Dafoe managed to bring a certain gruffness to his character because, well, let's face it, Willem Dafoe has been the actor who usually gets casted in a lot of these gruff, very don't mess with me, or even plain evil characters. And here he fits the gruff part of Peter. Sure, his character did start off as an asshole, but he gets a little bit more likable. He gets a little softer in the ending. And I felt that this was another one of Mr. Dafoe's finest performances, even though he did not really have a lot to do. With Lotte Verbeek as, what's her name? As his secretary, Lidovie, I definitely enjoyed her performance as well. She was able to bring out that charm and that sweetness that she has as Peter's secretary. And even though she did not have a lot to do, I definitely felt that her performance in this film was very solid. So overall, oh yeah, and lest I forget about Mike Birbilia's performance as Patrick. Now, given his experience as a comedian, he was able to bring a little bit of sunshine through this slightly depressing yet very real movie. He was able to bring out that huge ray of light that could have been otherwise a very depressing and very the very film that you would rather watch if you have a bad mood or something, or if you feel like you want to off yourself. So he definitely brings a lot of sunshine in this film, for lack of a better word. He was definitely a lot of fun to watch, even though his role in this film was very minute. So overall, When it comes to this film's acting, it was just that solid all around. Now the music, it was the one aspect of this film that really sold it for me. Save for one piece of music that I did not really care for when Hazel's mom, Hazel, and Augustus were entering Amsterdam. I did not really care for that piece of music. But it's very safe to say that the music used in this film are basically these hushed, very somber, yet very resonating ballads that talk about life, death, love, and many other aspects of being a human being. They definitely resonated with me very well. They definitely resonated with this film extremely well, and it was just simply put, well, an OST that's worth downloading or purchasing. So overall, this film surprised me in more ways than one. What could have been a very boring and very depressing piece of excuse of a teen film turned into a shining gem of just how teen movies should be, with likable characters that are very real and that are very relatable, especially towards the teen audience, and a very well written story, great acting, and memorable music. This film could be definitely a contender for the next for the next Academy Awards, and I hope it is going to be a candidate for winning the Oscars. So with that said, I give this film a 4.5 out of 5 stars. It is definitely worth your time watching. And for all you dads out there that have teenagers that are so sick and tired of watching the same sugar-coated crap that they saw on Disney Channel and would like to have a film that is very much relatable and very down to earth, go ahead and make them see this movie. And I'm sure that you dads will definitely enjoy this movie as well because it's just so heart wrenching. It is so emotional. It is just so powerful. And it is definitely up there with a lot of great teen films of the past, like Breakfast Club, 16 Candles, and 13, and to some extent, Kids. So it's definitely up, and it's also up there with a lot of great teen shows like Pretty Little Liars and, well, to some extent, the OC, but mostly Pretty Little Liars and to some extent Glee. It is so up there when it comes to relatable characters and real life situations. You will not be disappointed, and so will your teens. They will definitely not be disappointed. So, like I said, go ahead and check out this film. Well, that's all for now. Be sure to tune in much later as I review The Two Faces of January. It'll be shown a little bit later in the evening. Well, slightly later in the evening. So until then, I hope you all have a great Father's Day so far. And I'm sure that you're also going to spend it on watching the football game. So I hope you all have fun with that as well.